Produced by Purdue Extension Economic and Community Development and the Purdue Center for Regional Development, with support from the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs.
There are too many smiles, not to mention candy and good cheer, to count at this event known as Art Squared. But for community advocate Don Crow, the emotions run much deeper.
It makes me cry. It really does. I mean, I just feel so fortunate to be in this place, to see that happen, and to know that we did that.
This is not the first time the streets of Fountain Square have teemed with color, noise, and a thriving merchant colony. Once, this urban neighborhood southeast of downtown Indianapolis was the site of a booming 50-year history as a primary commercial district. But the 1950s saw the rise of the suburbs and saw Fountain Square decline into an empty shell. Attempts to jumpstart the area always had a familiar ring. Just one more store, just one more business, just one more, and the area would turn itself around.
If the shop opened and stayed open for 6 months, it was going to be some banner day here in Fountain Square.
And those enterprises that held on were ones that would never create the rising tide needed to lift a struggling community.
There were 5 rent-to-own stores. Why would there be 5 within a block? And people ask me, how do we get rid of them?
Yet building a more prosperous business climate would be tough, for Fountain Square's streets gained the reputation as not a safe place to be, a notoriety that worked against the area's primary asset. Although it's located just 5 minutes from the heart of downtown Indy and 2 minutes from the interstate to anywhere, neighborhood leaders called Fountain Square a lost little valley. Any plan to recapture the district's vibrant past would depend, they felt, on drawing people with money to spend from outlying zones and into Fountain Square. But with little to offer, how? They started to make an assessment of assets the community already has and figure out how to leverage those assets. That's what entrepreneur Linton Calvert did when he purchased the largest and most dominant building of the square skyline, due to a novelty miniature bowling alley inside that had been closed for decades.
My best friend said, "What are you doing? Going into that big vacant building, going into Fountain Square, you're crazy." And I learned to appreciate vision and crazy being probably the same meaning.
Crazy enough to see his building's duck-pin bowling alley become a citywide phenomenon, hosting the gamut from corporate functions to birthday parties, and grow into a national curiosity featured, for instance, on the Today Show.
This was a game that attracted people who would have not normally come to Fountain Square. And when they walk away, my hopes were they told someone else about an experience they had that they didn't expect in an area of the city that they didn't appreciate what really ultimately this envision is about.
And Linton Calvert was shrewd enough to weed out other tenants that did not enhance his vision for the community.
This building had in it a value village. Their lease was up, and I told them they had to move. I said, "You're not what my vision is."
Soon, his crazy venture grew to include wedding receptions and a unique Friday night swing dance. But Linton Calvert's vision might have stalled on a single block on a single corner, had not a number of like-minded merchants begun migrating to Fountain Square.
I think that's probably how a lot of revitalization efforts start, independent individuals wanting to really do something and seeking out other people like that to do that with them.
Now, the independence of entrepreneurs is a good thing, but too many visions for a community usually are not. Step 2 involves creating a vision, with an equally important step 3, making it doable.
Normally what you get in a plan is, we will bring in 100,000 more people. We will build 5 new buildings. What you need are all the minutiae detailed steps of how you're going to do that. And most of the time the plans are at such a high level that when the local community goes to act on it, and Mrs. Smith, the local retired librarian who's volunteered to do something, looks at this task, there's nothing she can do. She can't tackle that. But if on the list was, call 25 people, put an ad in the paper to help you reach that objective, they can do that.
But who does the doable? You might be surprised.
You need talkers and you need doers. So the doers are the ones that get it done. They like doing the work. The talkers are the ones who get it set up. They're the ones who love to talk on the telephone and love to, be in communication all the time and talking. And that combination is crucial. And they're not always the likely subjects. They're people with a sense of energy about them. There's always someone who is passionate about their community.
You need somebody who has not only the belief, but also has the commitment, and then also has some knowledge. They just need to know the square footage, they need to know what the landlord wants for the property, for sale or for rent. Someone who can help this entrepreneur really kind of get a vision of what's available in the area.
Okay, you've got a workable action plan, talkers making connections, and doers showcasing properties. Step 4, be a Calvert. That is, be selective.
Really try to recruit businesses as opposed to whoever just showed up with enough money to pay the rent for a few months and, a business plan on the back of a napkin. We really recruit people who are invested in their business. I think you have to know when you're recruiting someone what they're capable of doing and what they're not capable of doing, kind of what the limits of what their expectations are. You have to know what your target is and you have to know what you can offer them. And we have never had financial incentives to really offer anyone here.
So if they're looking for free money, that's a handout, and I'm not sure that's really the way most businesses would succeed, because I don't think a community really has the ability to gamble on you. You should gamble on yourself.
How would a community recruit businesses? Well, I'll say one thing you don't want to do is don't make it all about money, because you're going to get the wrong kind of people.
If you're looking for a prototype, the hypothetically ideal entrepreneur, you might start with one of Don Crow's recruits, Tia Agnew and her husband, Brett Kennedy.
So this is my Washington's Folly, my tart cherry honey wine, made in the style of a hard cider. Ta-da-ta. Cheers.
Thank you. You get the brightness from the fruit, the tartness from the fruit, and then a little bit of honey on the finish. It has a lot of sweetness, but then a lot of tartness from the fruit, kind of all rolled into one.
So same bubble structure, same alcohol content, but instead of apples, it's a base of local honey and tart pie cherries. I think I've hugged about 30 people today. This is part about being more than just a business, taking money out of a community. It's about being a business and being part of the community.
Owners of the state's only specialty winery focusing solely on mead and hard cider, with a modern twist, they operate a one-of-a-kind business attraction. Yet from the beginning, the couple was looking for more than simply running their enterprise.
I wanted to come somewhere that I felt I was able to benefit in the neighborhood and the people as much as I felt they could benefit me as a small business. We were looking for a neighborhood that offered as much to us as we could offer to it. So it's really about kind of reaching out as a person to a person, saying, hey, I actually, I'm a business coming in, but I'm also a person coming in and wanting to actually invest and be part of more than just drawing money out of the neighborhood. I actually want to draw people in and make you as a citizen who lives here feel like your neighborhood is even more stable now with me being here than it would be if it wasn't here. I always joke in my business that I sell alcohol, I sell mead and hard cider, but I create community.
Step 5 involves the role that civic and political leaders can play in jump-starting that sense of community. For while Tia and Brett bootstrapped the finances for their fledgling winery on their own, as most entrepreneurs do, there were some things that they wished they had had more assistance with.
Not everyone as a small business owner comes in knowing what TIF is, a TIF district is, knowing who to talk to about incentives, or are there city-sponsored programs. If there's no one to guide you and to explain those things to you, they may be available, but a business owner, an average business owner wouldn't even know it. Facade grants, low interest rate loans, even grants would be lovely to renovate and get facilities into a working order.
We did a lot to improve the infrastructure, which helped to improve the quality of the environment so that it wasn't perceived as a scary place by people who had never been here. You need a bank, you need a library, you need a police force, you need food, you need a school. And we've really seen that come around. People who would never think of coming down to this part of the city now come down here all the time.
We have a library in our main corner, right across the street from me. Some people look at that and go, oh, that should be a commercial entity. I'm like, no, it shouldn't. It's the heart of a real community. You know, ideally, the perfect community is where you get to live, work, and play. It's so cliche, but it's so true.
Step 6 involves tooting your own horn a little. Fountain Square has an active merchants association that, when not recruiting businesses, partnering viable tenants together, and negotiating reasonable rents, operates a web page and stages community events. The goal? To get people into the square and get that word of mouth going.
They're going to be one of your best assets because no one has enough money to do all the advertising they want. Word of mouth, at least in this town, I'll tell you, is key.
Step 7 in our brief and certainly not all-inclusive overview is this: be flexible. When Litton Calvert and friends set out to transform Fountain Square, their original plan called for a dry cleaners and a drugstore. And for a community, that makes sense, doesn't it? Today, Fountain Square has neither. What it does have is a burgeoning arts community that's put the spotlight on this neighborhood as Indianapolis's next great location to live, work, and play.
Art had nothing to do with Linton Calvert and what my vision was. It's become what this area evolved into. What you need to be able to look at is that what is coming to you, and as it comes to you, take whatever has the ability to fill your stores. If we just get people to visit us, we'll all get our fair share.
One restaurant is good. 10 restaurants are not competition. That's better for all of them to have more.
The more diversity you have, you aren't the one-trick pony that people are just coming for X, Y, or Z. They get X, Y, and Z and A, B, C, and D too. And that's really important to sustainability of a community.
Now all of a sudden you have a vibrant community that now is going to mature into whatever you might envision it being or whatever it may become on its own.
It's a tough job, but someone has to do it.
Interestingly enough, Tia and Brett think they might have found an answer to one of the most pressing issues facing Indiana today.
How do we end the brain drain in states like Indiana? Entrepreneurialism for us was our answer to the brain drain. And I suggest that for a lot of people. If you have auspices of starting your own business, then start it and let yourself be the answer to the brain drain. Don't wait for somebody else. Now, it's not the easiest thing to do, I will tell you that. People have a very romantic idea of entrepreneurialism. Honey, there's nothing romantic about it. It's hard work, and you better like hard work. But gosh darn it, if you love where you are, or there's a place you want to be, and there's no job for you, create it yourself. That's what entrepreneurialism is all about.
There are lots of older people who grew up here and will always talk about remember when, if only. I think to myself, well, it might not be exactly the way it used to be, but there's never any going back. You can only go forward. But I feel really proud that we've recaptured some of that, and that it's through hard work and persistence and a little bit of a sense of humor. The sense of humor and being stubborn would be two characteristics I would say that you have to have in spades to take something from down and out to up and coming. And if you can laugh and just stick it out, you can get there.
But I'm not sure it has to happen with a lot of money. I didn't do it with a lot of money. All you can do is continue to make people aware, and it doesn't take money, it takes time. And as an entrepreneur, time is really what it's all about.
Produced by Purdue Extension Economic and Community Development and the Purdue Center for Regional Development, with support from the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs.